to get online. So we could call a meeting to order at 7:09, and we have Howard Margulies, Deb Zarnecki, Matt Merritt, Edie Twining, and two guests, Brian Farnham and Kate Hewitt, and Michelle is overseeing our meeting, Michelle Narn. Can we get an approval for the minutes from the last month's meetings? Has everyone gotten a chance to read those?
Yep, I'll make a motion to do it.
And I'll second that.
Okay. All right. So, all right. I mean, I guess that brings us right up to BSC giving their presentation. So, I know they have lots to talk about. So, I did, just to catch everyone up, I did talk with Tim today, and he is fine with us if we want to put together a work party to clean up that little zone of parkland, but by the river. So I think I'm going to try and find some time after Christmas that we might be able to go there and get a little work party together and clean it up. And he'll have the Department of Public Works come and pick up any brush that we clean out of there. So, hi, Michael.
Hello.
So this is Michael Farnham, Michael Cluckman from BSC is going to be presenting for us.
Michael, I see you chose the home office background.
You know, using so many platforms, and I think between this, Google Meets, Zoom, which we use a lot. What's the other one? Microsoft Teams. I forgot. I was like, did I ever do a WebEx recently? And I was like, I wonder what meeting I was in where I had this background because it was there. I don't even remember what it was.
I like it.
Well, Kurt got in. That's good.
I see Ray, you're there.
Yeah,
Hi,
I'm sorry I'm so late. Yeah,
that's okay.
got away.
And Kurt, I see you're here too. Good to see you.
Hey, everybody.
I think
Hi,
we're
Kurt.
ready for you guys to kind of jump in here. Our person Matt Merritt is only here till 7:30, so anything we could get going on would be great.
Okay, I'm just making sure that I get more our partners. All right, so hopefully she will be able to get on. I will share the screen. So, is everybody something that looks like an aerial of?
Yes.
Yep,
Road.
see it.
Okay, great. Okay, so thank you all for coming tonight. We've started our homework for the our scope of work for the Halls Road plan. This is our sort of official committee meeting, first meeting to sort of gather together, show you some of the work we've done for existing conditions, but also sort of get restarted on the whole master plan vision that we've worked on. So let me quickly just move along. So for tonight, what we're going to do is talk about it for our phase one scope of work called preparation. So that's where we're going to talk about the opportunities that you identified in your vision process already, some of the constraints that we're looking at as we look at these conditions, show you a preview of our base mapping that we've done. We don't want to go through it all, but show you what we have to work with. talk about infrastructure, existing conditions, working with review of the current zoning, and then hopefully Maura will be able to join us, Maura Cochran from Bartman and Cochran, to give us the results of her real estate market conditions. So this is all a lot to go through. So start with opportunities. This is just a look back at the work you did already with your visioning process and all the possibilities that are here. You can't achieve all in the near short term, but it's really helpful to have a map, an idea of where we want to be. We want to look at a village center, walkable center with perhaps use and more than just a commercial strip, that I really a coordinated master plan for a village center. So we'll also go back now and talk about, okay, so what are our goals for this master? And at the bottom right is a diagram that our fearless 380 has provided you before, but also we really liked, because it really showed how all the pieces are so interconnected when you're talking about a master plan, and you really need need the vision and implementation, and you really need all these pieces working together. So in fact, our major goals is we can draw beautiful pictures and make a master plan, but in the end, we've got to be able to implement it, so it's realistic, so it can actually happen in reality. And how do we get there? It has to be based on solid data and consensus. So good information, but people who live with this, who make decisions, have to agree. So this is communication. And then when we get to, okay, what could set the framework for some of the improvements, it's got to be fundable. In other words, we look for funding sources, grants for maybe some of the infrastructure and street parts, but then we're also looking at what a developer might be interested in. Again, so we're just doing a little bit of a relook at where we want to be, where we're headed. So we'll also be guided by design principles. Don't want to read through all of these. These are from a very good book from the Urban Land Institute about creating great town centers and urban villages. So these are principles for doing that. And, a lot of them are common sense, but they really are something whenever we're making a decision or we're looking at some master plan suggestions, we can go back and say, are we really doing this? Does it, integrate public uses? Does it capture the benefits that density offers? Does it connect to the community? So we can sort of run it through this list and sort of say, are we really, the stuff we're doing, is it really reflected of our principles? And there could be more as we go. This is where we'll invite your input. This is our start. So now we'll talk about constraints. So what we've done is we've done some initial base mapping. So we've taken this aerial photography, which is available from the state. And what's different than this than maybe your Google Earth images is it's geo-referenced to other state data. So this is an overview map, but it means that when we go in and lay over the sidewalk edges or utility poles or wetlands or flood zones, we can get fairly accurate for master plan concept designs. We can measure off this area, will be lined with our line work. So it's very valuable to sort of have the image and the state information all layered together. But again, this is our project area from Route 156 down Halls Road to the corner of Old Lime Street. And then these are the parcels that we are looking at. So we see the state right away, which is a darker purple. That whole area is owned by the state. So when we're talking about doing improvements to the road, that's our partner. And then these are privately owned parcels, and then also things like land trust land as well, because that will, it's in a sense, if we're proposing something a sidewalk, and that's something the state would like, it's a very easy improvement. We know there's less roadblocks. If we're saying, hey, we'd like to develop buildings along the edge, then we're talking about engaging private property owners and making a case that they might be interested in developing something. Or if we're even looking at something that's not typical in the right of way, maybe a pocket park or something else, we do know which side of the line we're on. Again, we've gone in we've done site visits, we've done a lot of photography, but we've also pulled in information onto this base map at a larger scale. I won't go through the whole corridor, but I just want to point out the kind of information we have to work with. So we have things like every utility pole. We have all the overhead wires in location. We have bus stops. We also have information such as the 100 and 500-year flood lines, which have different regulatory realities, the wetland lines, traffic signals. There's along the corridor, as you live there, you'll know, but we noticed that there seem to be only about 4 official streetlights in the project area. The rest of the lighting is whatever is provided by the private light fixtures in some of the parking areas. But it is very dark for a downtown. And we also identify drainage structures, and then it's a little hard to see, but we're also able, from the available information, to download elevation and topography and overlay it on the same map. And if we had sort of overlaid all of the available LiDAR information, it would make this map really hard to read. So what we've done is gone in, and this is something we'll be in our report. We're doing existing conditions report, and put elevations along the whole corridors. So Edie and I were looking at this earlier. Right here, we have an elevation that's approximately along Halls Road, 7.5 feet higher than the edge of the parking lot here. So that is, if we were looking at infill buildings or other things, that is enough difference where you could say, hey, well, okay, along Halls Road, it might be a 2-story building. But along here, it could be a 3-story building, and there may be some efficiencies in using that slope. If that's where we go with the master plan, it is something that you showed in your vision plan. It'll just be one of the options, but the elevation information is very valuable. We actually look at putting building massing and how things actually might fit on the site. It's another important layer. The other piece of homework we've done is we've done outreach for all of the infrastructure along the corridor, that if somebody was to develop the property in any way, they would need to know what the current situation is, what might be coming in the future, and constraints. And so I will invite Kurt to walk us through some of just the overview of the infrastructure in the corridor.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
All right, great. So really 2 main categories for infrastructure. The first category there is listed as transportation and Connecticut DOT, and really that's the roadway infrastructure, as Michael indicated. Route 1 is a state highway, and you saw the right-of-way lines which represent the corridor through which their roadway is placed. And just an important item to note is that the roadway is not always centered in the right of way. Sometimes it can be pushed off to one side or another. So it's always something we need to think about when we're looking at potential roadway enhancements, really of any kind, to make sure that we're maintaining all those improvements within the DOT right of way. So we did reach out to Connecticut DOT, both District 2 in Norwich and the planning group in Newington, to inquire as to any planned improvements along the corridor of any kind, really. And we were asking them to take a look at a 10 to 15 year horizon. They did confirm that there are no significant improvements along the corridor planned beyond what they would consider typical maintenance type activities. For example, changing out the lights on the traffic signals, or changing out the pedestrian call boxes if they age out, those kinds of things. But no improvements planned that affect the physical layout of the roadway itself. The second major piece that we've been taking a look at is the utility infrastructure. We can see out there the pole mounted electricity and telecom and those kinds of things. Michael mentioned the street lighting, which could certainly use some improvement. Of particular interest were what we consider development limiting utilities, and that would typically be sewer/septic and water supply. Typically, electricity and communications and those kinds of things are really not what limits our development, because those utilities can readily be upgraded. And just the way that the utility infrastructure is designed for electricity and telecommunications, it's very scalable, versus water and sanitary/septic, where if those utilities just physically are not present, really the only way to address it is to bring those utilities in. So currently we know that the water supply in the Halls Road area is by well. Connecticut Water is located in town. They do service town. However, they don't service this area. And they've confirmed that as part of their, what I'll call long-term plans, and that could be a nebulous term at times, depending on various factors. There is currently no plans to bring public water to the Halls Road area. Similarly, with sanitary sewer, we know that currently the town is looking at some sanitary sewers that are primarily down along the Route 156 corridor in the Sound View area. Those sewers will actually be going out to Route 156 Shore Road and heading east towards East Lyme, because ultimately those sewer flows will be discharged to New London, which handles all of East Lyme sanitary. So they're going to piggyback on that. Currently, the information we have is that there are no plans to extend sewer systems to the Halls Road area. We know that clearly that's something that would benefit development potential. It's something that should remain on the radar, and potentially even something that could be looked at from the standpoint of potential cost. And we will do that, so we can make sure we include that in the report so it has some context. But at this stage of the process, the information we're getting is that there are no plans to extend sanitary sewer service to the project area.
Great. Thank you, Kurt. So just, as another thing, we did review the existing zoning. It's not very complicated at this point. I think, what the committee has already expressed before in the earlier visioning documents and also in discussions is that, one of the possible outcomes of the master plan once we've done our backup and our study, is that if it's the right plan that development can happen, that and we, it looks like a mixed use development is desirable. We would be looking at crafting a special district for this area that would change some of the limitations posed by the current zoning. But basically, all of the pink area is in the commercial C30S district. So it's commercial district. There's some quirky things in it right now. We're talking about, like, by right, you're actually allowed to build a single family residence. It doesn't help with a multifamily or mixed use, but it's in the zoning regs right now. Most of the other commercial uses still require a special permit anyway. There's some pretty standard dimensional requirements and setbacks, which are geared towards pretty old-fashioned commercial zoning. So really things about like density, having buildings up near streets, and sort of walkability, smaller scale buildings, that would all be part of where we would be headed with this. But right now, this is what we have to, is the current condition. So with that, again, we're giving you the overview. I'm going to turn this over to Maura Cochran, who's done a lot of research and homework of her own and outreach, and to give us an idea of the real estate market conditions, because to have this thing all come together to be not more than a sidewalk, we want to see what is the demand for development, what can work here, and what we can learn about what's going on currently with real estate along the corridor. So it's all yours, Maura. And you can tell me
Thank
when
you.
you'd like me to flip through the slides.
Move to the next slide. Thank you.
Yep.
My methodology. One of the reasons that a real estate market expert came into the team is to establish a baseline of what is there, what works, what isn't working, what can be built, what is your grand list right now for the properties in the subject area. So if you can start saying, well, we could do X versus Y, how is that going to impact us over the long term? And so what I did is, I live in Essex. I think most of you know. I go to the Big Y probably twice a week. So I'm over at the subject area frequently. So touring the market was not a big deal for me, but it was interesting when you look at it with a clear vision as to what's that retaining wall doing over there that you never noticed before. I created a database which Mike and Kurt and I have gone through, and I'm refining because I had one property too many in there, all that kind of stuff. So refining that, which we'll share with you and as part of the report. But what I basically have done for the last, other than going to every assessor's card, is I interviewed just about every owner or broker up and down the strip. I then did research as to what's happening with the residential market. And that right now, I'm just going to lead you through what my key findings are. So next slide, sir. Part of this is hard because it's COVID related. And right now, as like everyone knows, regular brick mortar retail is suffering. So market rates for general office, because so many people are working from home, and the retail do not support new construction. So sort of a general rule of thumb is that you need to have rents over $20 a square foot, preferably $22 a square foot, to support new construction. And what we're finding that for things like the Old Line Marketplace, their rents for retail are between $9 and $11 a foot. Now this becomes interesting when we move to the next stage, when this whole report becomes a lot more fun, is you can say people are getting $24 a square foot for building residential. So if you start to deal with the owners saying you're getting $11 for what you've got in a building that was built in, some of the Oline Marketplace buildings were built in, let's see, 1959, 1963, 1960, they're older buildings. So it can build an economic case for them as to why they may want to do something differently. A few of the newer buildings, like one on Huntley Road, which has 2,500 square feet available, they're getting rents that are $21.75. So the newer buildings are in fact getting the rents that would support new construction, but there's specialty and they're the newer buildings. And a lot of your stock is basically tired or functionally obsolete. Tenants would say that you could hear the wind blowing through the windows. There's no central air conditioning. Quite a few of the buildings, the second floor was walk up, which hinders how many people really want to be in a second floor walk up for an office. Good news is that the vacancy factor is very low. It's like 5 to 6%, which would be the envy of just about any city in the Northeast. I think in Hartford right now, Class A office is probably at 27, 28% vacant. But what we're hearing is when I talk to the owner of the Oline Marketplace, Bank of America is not renewing. He sees that his vacancy factor is going to grow. He has said that several people have notified when their leases are coming up, they're not renewing. So in interviewing enough of the current owners, people would say, I'm 100% now, but I'm losing a major tenant in January. So statistically, I have to say, as of today, you have a 5% vacancy factor, but I expect that's going to grow to 20% when some of the retail leases come up and some of the office tenants just say, I'm not going to work. I can work remotely. I don't think I'll be renewing. Usually I spend as much time doing the apartment demand, and categorizing every unit you can get. There's only one apartment for rent in all of Old Lyme. To do this, I went to Realtor.com, Zillow, Rents, Apartments.com, and I interviewed, I think, 8 different brokers. There's one apartment. I mean, talk about a demand. When you get into the Conover project in East Lyme, sort of the hill above Costco, they're getting rents that are around $220 to $240 a square foot. So you're over that $24. And the train station apartments in Old Saybrook are getting the same rents. So you can really say apartments are a pent-up demand in the area, and they're doing quite well. Thank you very much. So we're anticipating that if there were apartments that could be available, that there would be a market demand for them. Okay, next slide, please. Actually, well, could you go back to your slide of the market area? That might be the easier way to have me explain what's going on. Yeah, that one. Thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so
I can
yeah.
point. Ask me where to point, and I will.
The condos, the 100 Halls Road, the blue condos there, office condos.
Yep.
There's 1,800 square feet available there. 3 different brokers have told me that those building owners, I think there's 7 different owners there, are trying to sell the building. I have reached out to 2 of those owners and I have not gotten a call back. But that building is in really tough shape. You go in and it just smells musty, and it's in tough shape. So that might be a potential if you're looking at a gateway project, that may be in play. The next building over is the old nursery that's owned by the Hall's family, who now live in, I think, Arizona. They don't want to sell. Their broker has informed me that they are in final stages of negotiations to have that be a retail project. They're asking $25, $2,500 a month. That comes to $27.50 a square foot in rent. Next building over is obviously the Big Y Shopping Center, if you will. Bank of America is going to become available, and that's 4,440 square feet. The listing broker who I talked to said he's going to try to get another bank in there, and he thinks that he's going to put it on the market for around $22, $23 a foot. I've just casually walked in and out of several of the stores, and I will say that a couple of them do look like they may not be renewing. I'm not going to speculate, but some of them do look. The tenants around Big Y seem stable. As you move further down the line, they look a little bit iffy. The next project over is the post office, and next to that, obviously, is the Old Lyme Land Preservation Group. So that's, you know, for the public use. We can go back again. So let me go from left to right again. The Essex Savings Bank is 2 parcels. Those 2 parcels are under contract. They have completed due diligence, and they anticipate closing in the first quarter of next year. The broker for there, Susan Mallon, would not tell me who it was or what the use was. Yeah, shouldn't have to, so okay, fine. Immediately north of that on Huntley is the 7,500 square foot building that is available for sale or lease. So that sort of is an interesting, you've got quite a few things in play in that general neck of the woods. Then you have Treasures and then the gas station. 2 different brokers have told me that one Huntley, which is just due north there, it's 6.2 acres, owned by Lawrence and Memorial, that L&M is planning to put it back on the market. It has been approved, as you probably all know, because you know these things. For an office building, those permits have lapsed. I think they told me it was like 15,000 square feet of office and 72 parking spaces. If you're looking at the opportunity of getting residential, that would be a really interesting place for you to consider, because it sort of is a bridge area between the commercial area and the residential to its north and to its west. Then you have, going further east, you've got the Dunkin' Donuts building doing well. The building just above that is available for sale or lease. And so everything there just seems to be holding its own. The building at 5 Davies East is 100% leased, Shipman and Goodwin, and some medical offices. And if you get over to the Old Lyme Shopping Center, you know, I think if I ask, you'll tell me. There's a foundation wall, and I've heard that there may be some of the septic field as part of where that wall is. I haven't dug in yet as to find out. The land surrounding the Old Lyme Shopping Center, that broker said that they have it on the market for $250,000. That Old Lyme looked at their donating it to the land trust, and then the Connecticut Land Trust came in and offered $100,000, and they accepted it, but they went back and forth, and then under the terms of between the Connecticut Land Trust and Lyme Land, the deal fell apart. They have only 6/10 of an acre of all of their acreage that's high and dry. They anticipate that the people from the Old Lyme Shopping Center, if they want to do anything, that 6/10 of an acre may come in helpful if they need, coverage ratio or something of that nature. Crossing over the river, there's some, there's a restaurant, some office, miscellaneous stuff. They seem to be 100% occupied. Then you have the Florence Griswold Museum and the Lyme Art Association. But there was a lot going on. I was pleasantly surprised at how low the vacancy factor was. The fact that where you have, like, that nursery has been vacant for what, 3 years now, somewhere around there. The fact that they think that they're about to close the deal there, and maybe your folks in planning and zoning know what's going to be going on the Essex Savings Bank land, but there's stuff happening there. So that's sort of what I have. And I think you guys will be receiving all these notes, but I went down, all those notes are in this report, and I gave you a list of everyone I interviewed.
Yep, so those are your list there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then these are your,
Oh, the interviews, yeah. The notes. I wasn't leading people, but it was like 6 of them said, please take care of the signage. Look at 2 people really complained about the fact that they were following the signage regulations, but their neighbors weren't. The attorney that owns the O-Line Professional Building said that the people up Davies Road, like the vet, kept putting signs, they're really crappy signs, he said, on his property. And he went to them and said, I'll put up a pylon sign identifying the people up Davis Road. It'll cost $3,500. I'll front it and you can pay me back. And no one wanted to do it. Okay, fine. But he was just like, really? I was going to give them the money to do it just to make it look nice. I was the good guy. Okay, fine. The brokers were pretty uniform, saying that the only thing they see being economically viable right now is residential. So you need to change the zoning or do an overlay. Some people said put apartments on the second floor. I'm not sure that would work over at the O-Line Marketplace, but could you put retail on the second floor there? Because they do have some second floor. Who knows? One broker said you could use some 830G housing, but said that you'd go brain dead trying to get that approved. One person said get rid of that foundation wall. It doesn't do anything for the aesthetics. One person said apply for the Main Street grant to get better signage. I then went to the state website and they're not accepting applications. And several said that there really needs to be a common marketing effort. Like several of the properties were not listed on any of the national or local marketing sites. In my world, it's called CoStar and LoopNet, or where you list things. The state has a website that's pretty effective. And when I was trying to find these things, the Sotheby William Pitt people were the only ones that were on any of the national marketing websites. So if you were trying to find something in O-Line, you had to be there taking names off the sides of buildings. So that is something that I think you could look at as part of a recommendation, is look at a common marketing effort. So I think I'm be glad to answer questions. I mean, some of the things were just conjecture, like, is 100 Hall Street really going to be available for sale? Do the brokers who say that they have a contract in their hip pocket, are they really going to close? I can't tell you, but that's what, as of last week, everyone was very eager. I think each interview lasted well over 20 minutes for each one. Everyone really wanted to talk. It was really rather nice.
Howard, I had a question. I think you did a very good job. I'm impressed with what you people have done in such a short period of time. But I have a general question. I'll hold off until you guys are finished. But on this piece, I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of the advanced CT work that was done for the town, which has quite a bit of information in it that I think would be useful to you. And I just want to make sure that you are aware of that and have.
Yes, I read through that with great, it was a really well-written report. But when I was starting this project, I was told, don't duplicate what they did. We don't
Right, okay,
pay you to duplicate
sure,
what's being
right,
done.
exactly, yeah,
Take that as your base and build on it. So
Okay.
that's what we're doing.
okay, good, yes, I agree with that.
Great, thank you. We're about the end anyway, but just, to wrap it up, sort of you've seen sort of our first phase. So really what we have to do now is pull all this information into a cohesive report, our first chapter that we can circulate and give you the details and the spreadsheets and all the plans so you can look at it in detail. So that's our next step, is to finalize our existing conditions. It also means that we have this good base information ready for sort of working shape. So we can also, while we're finishing the conditions report, we'll start on our phase 2, which is our planning phase. So that's master planning, looking at everything from the roadway, the curb, the sidewalk, what can happen in the right of way. There's a lot of space there in the right of way for both road diet, but also expanding connectivity, trails, parking, all kinds of things, or where buildings can be. What we'll do is we'll pair that with working with Maura on development scenarios. So we'll start saying, a developer would be interested in building, a certain number. They're not going to build a 4-unit building because they're not going to make their money, but they might, they'd be happy to build maybe an 80 to 100. Where could that fit? And then that's when our constraints come in and we go, okay, well, what, given the current water and sewer conditions, we got to be a little smart and say, we're not going to suggest something. We'll never have the space for a current septic system or even something a little more innovative to fit. And we'll also, excuse me, look at sort of the what Kurt mentioned before is, okay, we know sewer's not planned or coming in, but we'll look at what it would mean, like what time-wise, what it would cost, and if that were to come in, what that would open up, just so we have that as a part of the report, so that if the question is, well, what could happen, we can show that. It might change how people are looking at Halls Road. So that's just our next steps, is we get to start doing our planning process and issuing our conditions report. So that is it. So really, any questions, and happy to sort of go back to sort of your goals and anything else. This is a good time to give us input. We start heading off into planning.
I guess I have a question about the O-Line Shopping Center. What is the story behind that retaining wall? I was told it was a foundation to expand the shopping center.
Yes,
Does
that's
anyone-
exactly it. They lost their funding back, two owners back. They have done an expanded septic system in that area to accommodate the new hair salon that's in the building. But it's just never really been addressed in terms of the retaining wall. It's just been sitting there for many years.
Maybe we can turn it into a handball court.
What?
Make it a handball court.
Yeah, right. I was curious with the DOT that they said they have, other than maintaining and doing any maintenance work, they have no significant improvements. We do have a document that was in the library a while back from 2006 that was a slight change to Halls Road in terms of the off ramps and on ramps from I-95, including an on ramp that was proposed to get onto the bridge going straight when you get to the end of Halls Road. You'd go straight and then up to the bridge. I have no idea why they wanted to do that other than to straighten things out, I guess. But so they basically are saying that's not in effect anymore, right? I mean,
That's correct.
okay. All right. That's good to know.
And I'll alert the committee if we, find out from some other individual at DOT otherwise. But right now I have two different groups, District 2 and Newington, telling me that nothing is planned.
Okay. And in talking with Michael, he was saying there's sort of two sides to the DOT in terms of one half wants to make sure the traffic runs through there nice and fast, and other half wants to kind of deal with the connectivity question and sidewalks. And I'm assuming that's going to be our challenge to try and figure out how we can make the traffic slow down enough to let someone cross the street.
Yeah,
Have
and
sidewalks.
actually, the good news is DOT is all about safety.
Yeah.
So everything that we do and the things we propose really at their core will be focused on safety. And that includes the safety of pedestrians, bicyclists, the motoring public. So we have found that they're very reasonable. They want, of course, to have an efficient transportation infrastructure, but they also recognize and they're very in tune with the fact that in today's environment, it needs to be multimodal. So again, pedestrian, bike, and vehicles. And we know that when we talk about the interaction of those three different modes of transportation, there's always a concern back to safety, intersections, bike lanes, and those things. So I have found the DOT to be excellent to deal with relative to those things. They're very knowledgeable, very enlightened with those things. So I'm really optimistic that they'll be an excellent partner, in
Right.
any plans that we put together.
Great. That's good to hear. And then I had a question for Maura. So from what you're describing, there's a good occupancy rate right now, but we may be seeing things starting to close up in the future. Will that tend to drive the values of these properties down as things close down, or how does that affect the developer who wants to come in and get things at a cut rate in order to, put together a bigger parcel or whatever?
Well, it's a mixed blessing, if you will. So say, just to say the Bank of America building, if you're looking at that corner, you have Bank of America building, which would probably go to become another bank. But
Mhm.
banks are closing down. Webster just announced they're closing 27 other banks in the state,
Yeah.
So could that be converted into a pocket residential?
Mhm.
It's a small thing, but I have no idea who the retailer is that's going to be taking the nursery. The broker says that the halls don't want to sell, but if you could manage to do an assemblage of the corner lot, the nursery, and Bank of America, you would have a nice little corner to play with.
Mhm. Mhm.
I just kind of looked at, I kept trying to join things.
Yeah.
If you have on Huntley, where you have the 2,500 square foot medical office, the broker says they have two medical people looking to be there.
Okay.
So he thinks that that's going to go. But I mean, I think I'd have a concern over at the Old Lyme Shopping Center because those parts of the building are really functionally obsolete.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm hoping that if we can get from BSC, what can you do for housing? I
Mhm.
can say, gee, 100 units would sell out in a flash.
Yeah.
Well, not if you can only build 30 because you don't have septic and you
Yeah.
don't have sewer. So that's the yin yang that's going to be going on. If we can show that there's an economic reason that you should be putting up residential, I mean, I would look at the opportunity for the Lawrence Memorial piece. I mean, if they're about to put that on the market, that would just be a nice little home run for you.
Mhm.
Be able to, turn something like that around, because unless they have somebody there, in mind, it's obviously not going to be medical office or Yale/Lawrence Memorial would be keeping it. You know, why
Yeah.
would they give it up if they thought? medical
I
office
think there
was
was
gonna
some
be up?
issues about drainage and being next to that water area, the
So,
wetlands that are there. I think they tried to build something there and it was shut down, but I'm not sure.
don't know. I was told that they got approval for 14,000 square feet and then they just never did anything.
Okay.
And I look at the Essex Savings Bank 2 parcels, and I would think, and again, this is, don't quote me on it, that to me would be a convenience store location because you could do it, you know, come in on one road and, you know, come in on Halls Road and, you know, go back out to 156. And so that is someone who's going to be an owner occupant. Whoever's doing it is doing it for a reason. I know Cumberland Farms has been very active in the market. So I'm not saying, you know, here I am saying it at a public meeting that's probably being written down. So erase, erase, erase. But, you know, people will come in if there is a need.
Hmm.
So if you were a, you know, ophthalmology group or a dental group and needed a building, you would buy the land and go build a building. So the specialty uses that need to be there will pay. But just
Mhm.
rank and file, let's put in a florist shop or, you know, a gift shop. In the time of COVID, from the time that Advanced CT wrote the report, and they even said, you know, we're going into a tough area now. We can't tell you that our recommendations are going to hold because COVID's coming in and COVID
Yeah.
will roll out. But right now, we're dealing with that you have some functionally obsolete office buildings. You've got nationally, brick and mortar retail is not doing well.
All right.
There is a need for Class B office space. There are people, you know, personal trainers and that, you know, crowd that want $10 space. You know, so there's a need for some Class B space in every market. But the
Okay.
real demand that you can go out and get financed right now is residential.
Great. Thank you. That's very helpful. Well, thank you guys. Does anyone else have other questions that they'd like to ask this group, or should we let them head home?
I'd just like to ask Kurt just one question. I know you're going to address this, Kurt, at the next phase, but
I think we lost audio.
Yeah.
Ray, we lost you. It looks
that
like
we had originally thought about, or at least in the master plan.
Lost you for a while, Ray. You might have to repeat your question.
We
lost
we
you.
lost your audio, Ray.
I was just wondering, Kurt, if there is enough right away on the out on either side or both sides of the hard pack of the road for a good sidewalk space with some trees interplanted and you know, a nice walking path.
Yeah, predominantly, I think the answer is yes. So that's good news that the right of way extends beyond the curb line of the road. Probably a sufficient distance where we could include a grass buffer and a standard 5-foot sidewalk and then some other minor amenities. So we'll continue to take a closer look at that as we, you know, move into the next stages. But our initial data indicates that yes, you've got a good wide right of way there. That's going to afford us some flexibility as we conceptualize some of the designs as we develop the master plan.
This is Howard. I just wanted to, like I said before, I think you guys have done a really good job in this initial phase. You've covered a lot of ground. As I've been on this committee for a couple of years, and it seems to me there are, I just kind of jotted down 4 four issues that have been discussed, debated, and I think are on everybody's minds as we go forward with this whole project. And I'm not going to ask you to give a lot of detail to the answer to them, but just, what would your approach be on these issues? And I'll talk about what they are. One is, as you've mentioned before, the retail is in a state of flux, and it was before COVID, and now it's accelerated. And we all talk about what the new normal will be, but it would seem that as people plan, there has to be a great deal of flexibility in these kind of projects. So I've been looking at other projects where they're making design choices that allow tremendous flexibility. So you could have a building that could become condos, it could become retail, it could become office space, and that would be adaptable pretty easily to what the needs are at that time. So that's that. One is the future of retail is changing, as we know. As you've talked about, the demand is not going to be there. Yet we need to keep a viable town. So that has to be in the mix, plus the flexibility. And then I guess the two other issues are there are a number of people in town who would like just to see very minor changes. And then there's another group of people who think, as I do, by the way, that long-term, to be viable as a town, we're going to have to make significant changes and be able to meet future needs. And as you described, the structures that are there, they're not going to do that. They're not going to be capable of doing that. So, and the fourth one is the character of the town. That was always on the top of the list of what people wanted to make sure they preserve. So I think when we talk about having large, potentially apartment complexes, or looking at apartments, that will probably set off alarm bells in some people because they'll anticipate that that's going to change the character of the town some way. So those are the kind of four things I think have been in the forefront. And my guess, I'm not sure it's a question, a statement, but what is your approach or outlook to those kind of issues that the town and its residents and businesses have articulated previously? I guess.
Want me to take part of that?
Yeah, why don't you start, yeah.
Okay. One thing that we have found, and it was a recommendation we made in New Haven, where we're working with the Route 34 corridor, and Yale New Haven needed parking, and the city really wanted to have equity housing. There were too many apartment units. There was like 95% apartments, and the area was a little sketchy. So what we recommended, and they did, is that they put a parking garage up with a residential facade, and the parking was so needed and generated so much money, it offset the need for the equity housing. So not to pick on the Old Lyme Shopping Center, but that retail is kind of buried back there. It's really hard. They need signage, pure and simple, because you don't know what's in there. So there are a couple of easy hits. So the plan should be, here are some things you should be doing anyway. You should be having a good signage ordinance that is enforced. You should be going after some grants that will get you better signage, whether it's the Main Street program or something else. Then you go into, what is your marketing plan as a town? Whether it is the old Main Street or this is a new Main Street, how are you marketing? Why? What is the why for being in Old Lyme? So that is stuff that is just the bedrock. Then you look at something like an Old Lyme Shopping Center, and hopefully we can come up with something that says, that building is, well past its due date. What would happen if you moved retail up to the street where it should be, and put residential where you had a view of the salt marsh and the Lieutenant River. And maybe the income from the rental is high enough to subsidize the retail. So we're going to try to come up with some ways that other municipalities have worked this kind of project to make it work. The problem with most plans is that they're too ambitious and you can't get anything done. And people after 2 years throw up their hands and say, I'm tired of going to meetings. We're not making anything. And if you just are driving up and down Halls Road and you got rid of those little teepee signs that are just falling down and messy and just took care of some of the aesthetics just by a better signage program, you'd be making some headway. The guys pointed out there are only 4 streetlights. The road's dark. It doesn't take much to put in more, relatively. It doesn't take much to put in better lighting and signage, and you have a sense of you're making progress. So those are some of my ideas. Let's start with a good bedrock and you build from there.
Yeah. Again, the flexibility question, just sort of going through your list, Howard, the flexibility, that's interesting. I mean, that is, you know, when we're looking at things, there's certain things we can think about, you know, not knowing what's going to be what. Even in like a row of buildings, you know, you could imagine you'd like little small storefronts all the way down, but that may or may not work. So you can do things and go, we can look at a stretch of the road edge there that we can imagine something being built and go, you know, how long, you know, for how long can we put one building plate along the road so that if somebody wanted to come in later and make 3 small buildings one, they'd have a level entrance. I mean, that's what I've seen in a lot of buildings. You know, that's how they build a lot of shopping malls. Shopping malls, they, you know, you don't see this, but they love to do that, and that they like to keep as much a long line of storefronts at the same elevation as possible, because that allows them to make 1 to 7 storefronts, depending on what kind of tenant they have. Housing is a little different, and that's really, I mean, Nora can talk about this, but it's a little harder to turn something into housing because there's a lot of different codes and things that have to happen where people live. So, you know, that, but again, that's the one sort of sector I think Mars identified is a winner. So, so that's okay.
The nice part about what's happened and why you have such high occupancy is that the rents are pretty dang low. They really are. So if you're, you know, what could be a marginal aquarium shop, if you're only paying $9 a square foot, and it doesn't take that much to make rent. Where if you're in Essex and you're having to pay $22 a square foot, those people go out of business. It's like a carrot, you know, merry-go-round of people hopping on and off the horses here. So the fact that the rents are low at this point has really been one of your saving graces for having the diversity that you do have.
Yep.
So you don't want to throw out the $9 rents. It may be to your detriment to be looking around going, where did all these nice funky stores go?
Yeah, no, and these are good sort of talking points. The character thing, there's lots of ways to talk about that. And that can mean a lot of things. If somebody says, what about the character of town? Do they mean that they don't want new people moving to town? Like, what does that mean? Really, when you think about it, there's a lot of the population probably in town who, unless they can find an apartment to go move to, they're not going to want, you know, as they get older, take care of a larger single family house, and they want to walk to places. If what you're talking about is keeping residents in town, you do need to do something. You do need to take some action so that there are places for people to stay in town. The other thing, you know, character can be totally different. You talk about sort of its look and feel of the town. Part of this, and even the marketing, we're saying, how do you market the town or the Main Street, is you've got some things to start with. You've got the Art Association, the Florence Skeersall Museum, they have a walking trail in there. And if there's a way to draw that walking trail down from Lime Street in that corner, down through Halls Road, and maybe make some connection to the little parkland near the bridge. Then you have the potential of making some kind of, art trail or cultural trail. So it's not just a sidewalk, but you actually use that right away as part of the reason that somebody might go to the museum or the Old Lyme, the historic district, but they might come down the art trail because there might be something that draws them down, historic signage, and then that's where they'll stop and maybe buy their ice cream and other things that would keep the businesses going. So I think these things can play well together, but they're good talking points for sure. Yeah.
Comments, and I think we should let you guys go and finish up your work because I know there's a lot more steps on the road here, and I think unless anyone else has another question, we should finish up. And I think we're practically done with this meeting. It's getting pretty late. So,
Okay.
Anybody else? Any last questions, thoughts? Okay. Well, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it. And
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
all three of you have great
Yep.
stuff for us. So
Happy holidays, one and all.
Yes, happy holidays. It's great to see
Thank you,
everybody.
guys. Yeah.
Again, thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us on board.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I think
Thanks so much.
you guys done a great job so far in a short
Thank you
period
so
of time.
much. Very
Great
much
job.
appreciated.
Catch you later. Bye.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so
So a lot of good information, I think they've.
yeah, and I think they'll send
Yeah.
us that report that I'll send around to all of us, and we can probably even post it on the town website so people see that things are happening. And I think that'll be really helpful. And just so you know, when we first started the meeting, I had mentioned, and I think Ray, you hadn't gotten on board yet, but I did talk to Tim about getting permission to put together a little work party to work on that little park by the Lieutenant River. And he was happy to let that happen and would have some public works guys pick up whatever we pull out of that pile in there. Certainly won't be as big a deal as what we did the first time around. So, but I think it does need to be tended to. And if you can think of any people beyond our committee that would like to get involved with this, it would be great to encourage a bunch of town input and folks to help out on that. So I'll send more info later on. I think we'll do it after Christmas, but the winter is a good time because there's no leaves and it's easier to do some work in there. So,
Good.
do we have a motion to close this, or does anyone want to have any other comments, or?
No, it's great to have it moving along, Edie. You've done a great job with the contract and the company is good.
Yes, I
They're,
think
they're delivering.
yeah, we're getting there.
Great.
Hey, Edie, can I ask a question? It's
Yes.
Kate. Hi.
Uh-huh.
Are you going to make that report available? The one I was just watching tonight, is that available tomorrow?
Yeah, I can, as soon as I think they had a few more things to clean up on it, but
Okay.
yeah, as soon as I have it, I will send it to the town website.
You're going to put it on the website? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. And if
Okay.
you can email it to me sooner, that'd be great too. So thank you.
okay. All right, sounds good.
I move to adjourn.
Okay,
Can I just make a few comments?
yes, please.
Oh, sure.
I was really interested in the real estate segment, but I was a little disappointed because I feel like, we already know most of the information that Myra, I think her name was Maura, that she was telling us. So I didn't feel like we really, I mean, she learned everything that we already knew. But I feel like I did at the end, I liked how she said, you know, working on signage, the sidewalks and the lighting is a good start of something to show that after all these years that there is something that we could do. Because to me, the fact is that is just such a busy road all day long. And I have a hard time thinking about it being a nice road to take a relaxing stroll on. So I feel like, you know, when they talk about safety on that road, I can't really see it. But like I said, I was just happy to have her say that she was talking about changing the signage, the sidewalks, and lighting on that road, because it is really dark. But those are just my comments. Otherwise, I thought they were good in their presentation.
Great, thank you. Thanks a lot. Okay.
And Edie, when will we see them again?
Well, we're gonna try and make sure that we get at least a check-in at the beginning of our meetings, because that was something Matt Merritt suggested.
Right.
And I thought this was gonna just be a short little thing, but I think they
Yeah,
had
that's
done
okay.
enough work to really present
Right.
something. So I think that was helpful.
Right.
So we'll see them again, I believe, in January. So
Okay.
we'll-
And I think Howard, your comment regarding the character, I think that's something else that's really important, because, you know, these guys somewhat know our town because they've done the project at Soundview, but you know, and listening to the EDC presentation that, you know, Cheryl tying in the whole arts, I think that's really important too, because that, you know, that second half of Halls Road, the art area of it, you know, is very important to kind of tie in, but yet I don't really want it to be one dimensional, which I kind of think maybe EDC is, but I think it's a good start to maybe take it in like segments, the project. Do you know what I mean? Like the area.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I think, advocated for a very comprehensive master plan that's somewhere out in the future. But
Right.
yes, it's correct. We need to go in phases, and there has to be progress that's demonstrated so that people buy into the whole thing. So yeah, you need both. You need a long-term plan that's flexible, and you need to be able to do it in phases,
Right.
so that you get progress and you see how it goes. Yeah.
Right.
I
Okay.
think that's also why we're hoping to, you know, get a little work party to go clean up that area down by the river too, because it definitely, I mean, when we first did that, it was completely covered in vines. Every single tree was impossible to even see. And
Okay.
it's beginning to look more like something. And I agree, you know, little increments, changes, you know, get rid of that weird little planter bench thing and the lampshade that's sitting on there right now. You know? and maybe figure out if there's a way of doing some, just gather together those silly little tent signs that are all over the place for.
Right.
Look, horrible. I mean, that, and
I
I
know there's
think,
been a lot of complaints about that. And
yeah, as the virus holds on, people are getting desperate, and they're just throwing up these little signs all over the place to try to attract it, and it just looks terrible.
Right.
Yeah.
Very bad. I mean, is there any kind of regulation on the side?
There is,
I
and they
thought
are in
there's the
violation
this
of them.
state
They're
has
actually,
right of the signage, don't they? And how is
Yeah.
this all just popping up like that with no one?
no
monitoring it.
one's going and addressing it. No one's enforcing the correct signage. That's part of the problem. So I think Dan Barrett is supposed to be taking care of that, but he's got a lot of other fish to fry right now. So he's not been able to get to it. So.
And then can I just make one more comment from my notes? You know, this group is good. Like I said, I think that they somewhat know us because they've done that project at Soundview, but I'm afraid that they're going to say like housing is our solution to everything. And a lot of these companies do that because there's so much housing going up all over. And I'm afraid that they're kind of already heading in the direction of too much like the Yale design already. So I think we kind of need to keep them focused that, we need to get something done that to shows that we're working on this after all this time, rather than going down the Yale trail again.
Yeah, well, I mean, what we have to recognize is that in order to do, I mean, I think Morris spelled this out pretty clearly, that in order to get any improvements on some of the really rundown properties, allowing for mixed use is what will inspire a developer or property owner to make any changes. If they can't afford to do anything because they can't have residential there, they're not going to do anything. So the housing is a key piece to this, but the town is responsible for really just taking care of the right of way.
Right.
And that will most likely be the first thing we see making changes. It may be first on the north side of the Halls Road and then later the south side, but I think there are a whole lot of moving pieces here that we are trying to keep track of, but best to see the big picture and then work for the small parts to get there. Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
All right. I second. So we will see you guys all in January. Thanks so
Okay,
much.
thank you, Edie.
Well, look out for some
Thanks.
work party invitations.
Okay.
Okay.
I need some exercise. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Get your clippers sharpened.
I will.
Take
I will.
care. All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.